Great. We'll move fast on to Fergus Dyer-Smith, who's a co-founder and CEO of Wooshii, a global agency with a very interesting delivery model for production. So Fergus, let's hear more about Wooshii.
Hello, hello. Greetings from my cell. I know it looks like I'm in a prison, but I promise you I'm in a meeting room of sorts. Right, let me just bring up my slides. Hopefully you can see these. As you rightly pointed out, my name's Fergus. I work with a company called Wooshii. If you want to find me, there I am on LinkedIn most of the time. So I thought I'd start by taking a step back and sort of say, why do we exist? How did we come to be? And a little bit just around how we help our customers think about video. So we often talk a lot about what we call the attention economy. We didn't turn that. I can't remember where it came from, but we like it. The basic premise is that as a client or as a customer, we're all sitting and working within this attention economy 24/7 today. We have something that can capture our attention. So that could be Spotify, Audible, Facebook, social, and of course, video. And so it doesn't matter who you are or what company you're running, you're having to compete with all these other traps on a person or a user's attention. So that means as a business, you have to try and find some way to break through that and deliver your messages to your intended audience. Fortunately for us, video has sort of emerged as the winning format, really. It's with good reason. The winning device is really the mobile device, and video works particularly well on that device. I'd argue written text doesn't work quite so well, but consuming video is super easy on a mobile device. You can do it while you're traveling or whatever. You don't even need to see the pictures in some circumstances. We've probably all seen things like this. The picture on the left is the London Underground in 2011. Haven't seen one of those books for a while. And the picture on the right is not the London Underground, but I think you get the idea, and we've probably all seen things like this before. What's really interesting is that, in the last 10 or so years, a lot of spend has gone into the video medium. And in the main, and I think you were alluding to this earlier, Tom, is that spend initially went into marketing. It's clearly a really good format for delivering messages, very engaging. And so marketers were reasonably quick, I would argue, to pick it up as a form of getting messages out to their intended audience. But what's occurring increasingly, again, as we heard as the first speaker, is that now almost every person within a business or every unit within a business that deals with communicating messages, especially if it's asynchronously, is looking to video to do that. So that could be compliance, training, HR, internal comms, external comms. It doesn't matter who you are. Video is now a format which you will consider quite largely as a route to getting your message out and to your intended audience. So that's actually where we work most of the time. Again, sounds like we're not the only ones. We call it enabler content. We like to think of content almost as a sort of pyramid, or we sometimes refer to it as the content pyramid, where at the top, you've got the sort of glossy, beautiful looking ads that you see on TV. At the bottom, you've got a lot of sort of UGC, and in the middle, you've got this growing expanse of everything else, all the functional content that's getting made by brands. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not good quality. It's often very good quality. Companies like us and the other two that you've just heard, ensuring that that occurs. Obviously, it still has to represent the brands, represents the businesses in the right way. So it's very important that that content is looked after. And increasingly, they'll turn to companies like us to deliver that. We work with over 100 brands around the world, typically on a sort of global fashion. We help them scale that type of content all across the world, making thousands of videos a year. I'll come back to how we work in a minute, but I thought what might be interesting is just to get a little glimpse of what we talk to customers constantly about in terms of how they should think about video, or at least give them give you one of the frameworks that we use to help them understand how they might think about getting into and using their video content. So this is typically what we see when we first start working with a customer, if they're doing a bit of video, and often they're working with other content as well. And that is, they have this brief, which essentially sits at the center, and then out of that brief, which often will, include what the messaging is and who the audience are, and, the goals of any given campaign, out of that brief will fall all sorts of other types of content. So that could be, your written word, or, blogs, or email. You've got audio in the shape of perhaps podcasts, social, imagery, and of course, video. And all those different content pieces fall out of that brief. That's sort of one way of looking at it. Actually, all too often we come across customers that looks a bit more like this, where the video, because it's the hardest to do, or at least it's the most involved, will often get pushed to the back end. And many times when we first start working with clients, the other sort of content's already been thought through, and the video is almost a second thought to a certain degree. That comes with a number of challenges, which we'll get into in a minute. So the way we encourage our customers to think, and clients to think, is to think video first. And there's a number of really good reasons why think video first. But in terms of what that actually means, what it really means is saying, look, when you're designing your brief, thinking about the audience, thinking about the messaging, think of it in terms of the video, and almost disregard the other content forms in the first instance. Now, I know that sounds very self-serving, which it is, but there is also a couple of really good reasons why that's a very good way to think about any content output. So the first sort of bucket is because by thinking video first, you actually make all the other pieces of content that much easier to get to. So when you think about what you have to think in terms of designing a video, you have to first think about, the story, the narrative, like what tale are you going to tell? And it doesn't matter what video it is, whether it's an animation, a product video, an HR video, a customer testimonial, they all have some sort of story, some extended period of time over which you're going to have to deliver a message. So I guess you could replace story with message, but it's basically that has to be thought through before you can actually get into production, or even get into pre-production really on any given video. You also have to think through the characters. Who are the people that are going to be in the video? Who's going to be the star? It may be people, of course, it may be a product, maybe a service. So characters really, like, what's the star and how are they going to be represented in the video that you're about to create? Again, getting to that early on, you need all that before you actually get anywhere near production. And then, of course, you need to think through things like visual aesthetics, what's it going to sound like, the overall appearance of the video. Now, all those things are needed for the video, but actually once you've got them set up, it's very easy for other pieces of the content to fall out of that. So if you understand what the visual aesthetic is, it's very easy for imagery to fall out of the bottom of that, or for sort of social images to fall out of the bottom of that. Once you know what the story is, very easy for blog posts or mailers to fall out of the bottom of that. So it's a really succinct and good way of actually thinking about your overall content campaign before you get into the rest of the output that you're going to have to produce. And then the second bucket is really, if you do all of that, is really practical. And that is the time that it takes video to get made and the cost. Video generally takes the longest. There's all sorts of moving parts, logistics, people, equipment, that have to be taken into consideration when you're thinking about the video or videos that you're going to be making. And so by actually getting to your video first, you can get a lot of that up and running, and that, you can be running a production whilst you then go back and start thinking about the other content that might fall out of the bottom of it. And by doing that, you're also going to be able to drive the best pricing for your videos. If you don't have much time, you don't have the ability to negotiate, you can't go and find multiple vendors, you can't bulk buy so easily, your production company may have to pull in extra resources to make up for. So there's all these sort of things swirling around. The more time you have to make video, the better prices you're going to be able to drive out of the back end. So video first is something that we talk about a lot with our customers. It's a really simple idea, which is why we like to give it to them first. It's just, okay, look, let's think about this product launch. Let's think about what the video is going to be. Doesn't always work, but I would say 90% of the time, it's a great way to think about how you're going to think about the next content plan that you've got. So that's a sort of little insight into how we think about video. In terms of us as a business, so we're just under 100 people split between the UK and the US. Mostly working with global corporates, as I mentioned, helping them scale out what we call video operations, which I guess is a lot of production, but a number of other things which we can get into. Our setup's quite interesting. We essentially have a big core team of producers. So these are people that will run and manage video projects on behalf of our customers and our clients. We then have an in-house team of specialists, so creative, distribution strategists. We don't actually really make anything as a business. The way we deliver and execute is we've built up over the years a network of thousands of production entities all around the world that sit inside a platform, which I'll show you in a minute. And that allows us as a business to be able to deliver almost anything, anywhere, at any time. So we're a very responsive business. We're able to do things very quickly, pretty much on anywhere in the globe, and provide all sorts of choice to our customers, although we ultimately own the output at the end. And then that's all connected together by various different pieces of technology. So we think about video, and this is, I guess, very similar to your trifecta there that you had there, Tom. We just call them slightly different things. So we think of video as a life cycle. So you've got the create phase, which is, what are you going to make? How's it going to look? That type of thing. Once you've got a video, you then have to think about what am I going to do with it? So, you could have to think about distribution. Obviously, tools like 23 come into play there. And then you've got the measure element, which is, okay, now I've done something with my video. How do I know that it actually helped me and worked? And so we work across all three of those. In terms of the tools we have something called Wooshii Jobs, which is our network, our marketplace. It's how we interface with this big global network of suppliers that we have, and it's used by us and by some of the largest agencies in the world to manage and run video projects. We have something called Wooshii Insight, which is a analytics and insight tool, plugs into YouTube, plugs into Brightcove, plugs into multiple different video tools and sucks in data, enriches the data, and spits out all sorts of different ways of looking at that information to understand what's working and perhaps what isn't working. We have some management tools. We have something called Woosh, which is a video sharing platform, feedback tool, very lightweight, designed specifically for producers, really, more than, say, editors or directors, but it's a very quick way for producers to speak to clients, share video files, and capture feedback. So that's us as a business. Bit of a whirlwind tour, but hopefully that gives you an idea as to who we are and how we operate. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Fergus, and thanks for sharing that.